Welcome to Andalucia, the sun-drenched, picturesque region in the south of Spain, where historic cities, beautiful landscapes, and mouth-watering food draw millions of tourists each year. We're Jamie and Skylar, and in 2025, we spent 10 days traveling across this absolutely breathtaking region. We explored 2 major cities, a few coastal towns, some mountain villages, and miles of gorgeous countryside while enjoying some of the best dining we've ever experienced along the way. We traveled by rental car, cab, bus, and train, and we even caught a ferry to Morocco for a day. We did much of our exploring without GPS, and while we did still find several major tourist attractions, we also got pretty far off the beaten path and even got lost a time or two. So whether you're planning your own trip to Andalucia or just want to see a bit of what this region has to offer, we invite you to join us on our 10-day adventure, beginning right now in the stunning city of Malaga.
So we made it to the cathedral, and this thing is absolutely massive, but we have no idea where the entrance is, so we're just going to kind of follow the tourists, and hopefully they take us there. So following the tourists did lead us to what appears to be the entrance. We'll see inside. So bad news, we just found out that the cathedral is actually closed until 2 today for a special event. And we also learned that the tower is closed for construction, so we're not going to be able to go up there and get those views we were hoping for. But thankfully the staff did recommend another spot where we should be able to get some really good views, and that is at the castle. So we're going to go try to find that later this afternoon. But first we're going to try to find a market that we've been hearing some really good things about.
So even though we can't get in the cathedral right now, we at least get to see the gardens around it because it is free to walk around. They have a few bird baths and a ton of pigeons gather around. Right now we're walking around the other side of the cathedral, and there is actually a crane here. And we can hear some construction going on, so not sure when that tower will reopen. Well, I'm not sure if we're getting close to the market, but we found ourselves a hand pigeon.
Now, even though we aren't currently using our cell phones to navigate, we do still kind of have an idea of where some of the main attractions are in this city, because I did study the map quite a bit before this vacation. Now, we actually knew that the central market was pretty close to the cathedral, just a little bit to the southwest. And while that walk should have taken us 5 minutes or so, it probably ended up taking us closer to 15, because even though when you know the direction where something is, it's hard to continue to go in that direction because the roads do wind around so much, and plus it's pretty cloudy today, so we can't see where the sun is to help us navigate. But we did eventually find the market. It's right behind us, and we're excited to check it out.
Now it is Saturday and it is very, very busy, but we're gonna go show you what's inside. It would be so easy to lose Skylar in here.
So they have these huge bowls of this orange stuff. I have no idea what it is, but I kind of want to try it. I have definitely never seen so many olives in one place in my life. This is awesome.
Oh my gosh, all these spices. The amount of fruit and veggies available here is so impressive. Charcuterie, a bunch of nuts and dried fruit.
They are making fresh fried calamari here. I bet that is the best calamari ever. Very impressive cheese selection here. And a bunch of cured meats. Of course, you got your wine vendors here as well. Here's the bread section. So the fruits and vegetables at these stands are pretty similar to what you'll find in Florida, but you definitely see a lot more figs and dates and stuff.
And while the meat section at this market did look fairly similar to what we're accustomed to at home, the seafood section sure did not.
Definitely seeing a lot of seafood here I've never seen in the States.
While we would have loved to eat some seafood, we had places to be and things to see, so we opted for a grab-and-go option instead. And one thing we found that you can never go wrong with in Spain is olives.
Oh my gosh, are we gonna be able to eat all those?
Yep.
All right.
That place is completely insane. So we just left the Central Market, and that place was pretty awesome and pretty terrible at the same time. It was awesome because of the selection. I've never seen so many different types of meat, seafood, cheeses, olives, and produce all under one roof. But it was terrible just because of how crowded it was. I constantly felt like I was in someone's way, and I was really happy to get out of there. So while I definitely would recommend visiting the Central Market, I probably wouldn't recommend you do it on a busy Saturday.
Now there are a ton of places to eat tapas inside, but you basically have to be standing around a very crowded bar. Now you can also eat outside at one of the tables, but at least today when we're visiting, there's a long line to do that. We decided we weren't that hungry. We grabbed some olives. We plan to snack on those while we continue to explore, and then we'll have a larger meal later on.
Now Spain is definitely known for their olives, so that was one of the things we really wanted to try here at the market, but they had so many different types and we had no idea which ones to pick. So we just went with the variety. Now this whole container costs like $5, which is probably about half the price of what something similar would cost in Florida. We're gonna give one of these a try. Probably the best olive I've ever had. So after checking out the Central Market and eating a ridiculous amount of olives, we are on to our next adventure, which is trying to locate this famous castle. Now, all we really know about it as far as location goes is that it's somewhere east of here. Like most castles, it is located up on the top of a hill, so we're hoping at some point we'll be able to spot it, and then it won't be hard to get to it after that.
Our journey east towards the castle led us to Calle Larios, which is arguably the most famous street in all of Malaga. This vibrant, pedestrian-only street is known for its shopping as well as its elaborate Christmas light displays. While we wouldn't be spending much time on Calle Larios on this day, we did spend some time on it the night before, and we're going to show you that experience along with a few of our other adventures from our first night in Malaga right now.
We just got into Malaga and got dropped off somewhere in the Old Town area close to our Airbnb, and we're both going on like 2 hours of sleep in the last 36 hours, so we don't have enough energy to do much. I think we're both really excited to get some sleep, but first we did have to grab some food, and Malaga is actually well known for its Iberian ham. We found a little corner shop close to our Airbnb that had some, and for $5 we were able to get a cone of it, and it is really good. It's a little bit salty, it's pretty fatty, but the flavor is great. I understand why it's famous here.
While the Iberian ham snack was great, it was only enough to whet our appetites, so we made our way to the famous Calle Larios in search of some more food. And just a few steps off this stunning street, we found our dinner spot for the night at Lolita. Here we had our very first experience with fresh Spanish orange juice, real Spanish tapas, and Spanish beer. Since we were exhausted, we didn't film as much of this meal as we normally would have, but we did both agree that this dining experience was a great one.
So after trying that Iberian ham as well as a few tapas, I couldn't pass up getting some gelato because there are gelaterias everywhere around here. And the one back here, they had a gelato called buffalo milk. We've never seen it anywhere before, but I would say it's similar to what we call sweet cream in the United States. It's very good.
And for those of you who are wondering, it really is made with buffalo milk. Apparently here in Spain there's some sort of water buffalo that they've domesticated and do actually raise for dairy.
Now while you decide whether or not you believe Skylar's story, we're going to get back to our search for a castle on our second day in Malaga.
Ooh, does this tell us where it is at all? No, I don't think so. So we're seeing something up here. We're thinking it might be part of the castle. While we may not be going exactly where we're supposed to, at least we found a really pretty area to walk on. So we were surprised to find what we think are parrots here. They sound and look very similar to the ones that we find in Florida.
So we've been walking through Malaga Park for a while now, and we've been pretty impressed with it. It's really nice. It actually runs on both sides of this road, and if you cross the street and go to the other side of the park, it actually sits along the Mediterranean Sea. Now, Malaga is on the south coast of Spain. It's known for having some pretty nice beaches on the Mediterranean, and most people who visit the city probably would visit the beach at least one day, but we're visiting in January. It's the coldest month of the year here. The high only gets up into like the mid-60s or so on most days, so it's not really good beach weather. So we probably will not be visiting the beach, at least not in this video.
So it just started to sprinkle and we came under this little covering and we're seeing people way up there. We're not sure if that is part of the castle, but I think we're gonna head that direction next. So we're glad we turned and headed in this direction. We found this little information map. It's a little rough, but we can tell we're at least here and we wanna go there to the castle. So we're heading in the right direction now. This city is making it too easy for us. We're definitely going the right way. So I'm guessing we're heading all the way up there, which seems very far away right now. So the walk to the castle is a bit steep. I'd recommend wearing layers. Skylar is already hot and had to stop to put his jacket in his backpack. So along the way there are several lookout points to stop and enjoy the view, but we're gonna try to make our way up to the top first. From here you've got a good view of the harbor. Looks like there's a ferry in right now, and you can also see a bit of the mountains as well. Some of this gets really steep.
The views keep getting better.
Yeah. Now, even if you didn't want to go all the way up to the castle, even just walking partially up this path gives you really good views.
So we just noticed that out there in the sea is a Virgin cruise ship. We just sailed on Virgin for the first time a couple of months ago.
Well, maybe we'll have to do that sailing.
Yeah.
There's a kitty just hanging out up here, taking a nap.
Guarding the castle.
So from here you can see the tower at the cathedral, the one we were hoping to get to the top of. You may not be able to tell from this view, but we're already higher than it. I know this probably doesn't come across on video, but this area is really steep. I do love that they have built these stairs around the existing trees. Now, if you're watching this thinking you would never be able to do this hike, it does appear there's a road that comes up here and maybe even a bus.
Now, as we've already shown you, you will find some absolutely beautiful views of Malaga on the hike up to this castle, and you don't even have to pay a penny for those. But the entrance fee is only $11 for both of us to visit both the castle and the Alcazaba, which we thought was a great deal and worth it, even though we do only have about an hour or so to spend at each.
Now, while the views on the hike up to the castle were incredible, we were amazed to find that the views from the castle were even better.
Yeah, the views from the castle are pretty nice. So everybody seems to be taking photos over in this direction. So let's go see what the view is like. Oh, wow. Yeah, this is why. So we have made it to the top of the castle, and the views of both the water and the city are incredible. Now, like Skylar mentioned, we don't have much time because tomorrow morning we're already heading to Seville, and then we're going to explore more of Spain and even go down to Morocco. Now, it is starting to rain quite a bit more, so we're going to get out of here. We're getting ready to leave right here, and we're going to head to the Alcazaba, so it's not too far away. So this is a pretty cool garden path that you can choose to take up or down to the castle. So this is a totally different path than the one that we took up here. I just spotted a wild animal. Look how cute it is, just sitting in that tree. I'm not sure what just happened, but all of the cats just started running this way. There's like 5 cats. Actually, I see probably like 10. Okay, so apparently these cats saw this man with this food, and they all came to beg for it. We almost made it back down from visiting the castle. Now, we didn't film much of the walk back down because that rain made those rocks pretty slick. So that is something to keep in mind if you're planning on visiting and there's any rain in the forecast. Make sure to bring some shoes with some traction. Now, I love seeing all the arched doorways as well as the brick and pebble pathways here at the Alcazaba, but it does feel a lot more touristy. It's located in town, it's very accessible, but despite that, I would still recommend coming and seeing it. You do have to be careful here because there are some paths that don't have any rails on them at all. From one of the viewpoints, you can see the path that you take to go up to the castle. So I wasn't expecting the grounds to be so beautiful here. It's a lot greener than I expected it to be.
We made it to one of the highest viewpoints here at the Alcazaba, and while this view isn't as good as the one we had at the top of the castle, it's much easier to get up here, so definitely worth the hike in our opinion. Now it's about 4:45 right now, and the cathedral is back open as far as we know, but I do think it closes at 6, which means we have just a little bit over an hour to get there, so we'll see you there next.
This guy asked Skylar if he could help him get his dog. Oh no, he's so fast! Next we have to find our way back to the cathedral, but we have to find it in the sky first to get there.
Yeah, we could see the tower a little bit earlier, but we can't see it anymore. I'm pretty sure it's still somewhere that way, but definitely not positive.
So we literally just got done saying that we couldn't see it in the sky anymore, and then we turned the corner and it's right here. Look at that!
So as you can see, we did find our way back to the cathedral, and the 5 o'clock church bells just got done ringing, and that means we still have an hour to spare, so we should have enough time to show you around quite a bit. Now, even though we weren't able to climb up to the top of the tower, we're both really glad we made it back to the cathedral before it closed and thought it was definitely worth the price of admission. Now, we learned it was constructed starting way back in 1525, and it took over 250 years to complete, and it just absolutely amazes me how they were able to build such a huge and intricate building that many years ago. Now, it's almost 6 o'clock. We are getting hungry, and for that, we are absolutely in the right place because I'm pretty sure there's about 500 or so restaurants within a mile or so of us. So we're gonna go try to pick one of them for dinner.
Now walking around, we found it absolutely impossible to not stop by one of these little cafes, and there were so many to choose from. Now this one drew us in because it had a beautiful display case full of pastries, and I expected Skylar to come back with something maybe stuffed with cream or full of sugar, but instead he came back with this. He had asked the staff what was unique to their bakery, and they said this, pan de Dios. So we're gonna give it a try. So it is really soft and just a little bit sweet. I really like it, but I know Skylar's not going to because it has coconut on top. Of all the crazy things Skylar will eat, he does not like coconut. I guess more for me.
Now, even though I wasn't able to enjoy Jamie's snack with her, I did at least get to enjoy a cafe con leche. And I noticed that this cafe also had fresh juices. I think that's pretty normal here in Spain, which we absolutely love because if you want fresh juice where we live, you pretty much have to go to a juice bar, and a juice is going to cost you like $8 there, where around here it's like $3-4.
After leaving that bakery, we were walking down random streets, and we walked by this place that just looked so interesting that it just drew us in. We went down this hallway, and then we were looking through a window, or what we thought was a window, at this big menu on the wall, and a local showed us that it was actually the door to get into the place. It is so cool here.
So the first thing we ordered is chicharrones because we've been hearing about these fried Oh, what is that? Did we even order those?
I think so.
Oh, they got us both of them. They got the perfect.
We're gonna have to share this.
All right, so these are fried anchovies. Supposedly, this part of Spain has the best anchovies in the world, and it's very popular to eat them fried here. That's actually really good.
A lot.
There are a lot.
Oh my gosh. I never thought I would actually like fried anchovies.
Really frickin' good. So we got the octopus salad too at the recommendation of a couple sitting next to us at the bar.
Oh yeah. You're really gonna like that. Very fresh. I think there's both shrimp and octopus in there.
So when we first got here, we knew we wanted the fried anchovies, and Jamie saw chicharrones on the menu, and she was thinking chicharrones were fried anchovies, but we later realized that they're pork. But we also ordered fried anchovies as well, and then we got the octopus salad, and we got this curried goat, which was also recommended by the people next to us at the bar. So I'm going to try this curried goat next. Honestly, I've never had goat I particularly enjoyed, but the people next to us said it's great. Wow. I would have never thought goat could taste that good. That is so tender. Previously, the goat we've had has always been chewy, This is not chewy at all, and the curry flavor is great.
Now, to be honest, I hadn't even planned on eating any of the goat, but after seeing how much Skylar loved it, I decided to give it a chance, and I can confirm that this goat was tender, flavorful, and nothing short of fantastic.
So we just finished up our meal at Bodega El Pimpi, which based off the name alone, you may not even expect to be a restaurant, but it was a restaurant, and we're really glad we stumbled into that place because for just 35 euros, we were able to try 5 different things, including fried anchovies, Malaga goat, chicharrones, octopus salad, and sangria. Now, all of those things are very popular dishes here in Malaga, and we're really happy we got to try them. Surprisingly, my favorite was the goat. I'd never had goat I enjoyed before, but this goat was so tender and flavorful, it completely changed my opinion on it.
So my favorite thing in there was surprisingly those anchovies. They were way better than I expected them to be. They weren't like super fishy, and you actually ate the entire anchovy, scales, tail, and all. It was a totally different experience and just not what I expected. Now we only have a couple more goals for this evening, and that is to find a place with live music and try churros with chocolate. Well, and of course Skylar wants to drink some more Spanish beer. Every time I lose Skylar here, he is looking inside a bar at a happy hour.
Yeah, and every time I lose you, you're looking at gelato or pastry.
Well, that's also true. For the popular dining spots, it does seem like people will wait in line for quite a bit to get in. Hola. So even though most of the streets are packed with people, you can find streets like this that are practically empty.
They still feel safe though.
Yeah. So somehow we found ourselves back at El Pimpi. We did a loop and didn't even know it. Oh, look at this. So what we have observed here is that the bakeries and cafes stay open late here. So bright inside. It looks delicious. So we have been wandering around, just going down random streets, whatever kind of intrigues us for the last 20 minutes. I do think though, like in most cities, if we were wandering around streets and didn't know where we were at, I would feel...
You'd be panicking.
I would be very nervous about it. But here, I can totally enjoy it and just kind of take in all of the experiences. I love it.
By this time of night, it's already 9:30, and as much as we'd love to walk around aimlessly for a few more hours, we have to catch a train to Seville in the morning. So we decided to finally get the phones out and look at the map so we could actually find a place with flamenco music and a place we can get churros. So hopefully that will be our next 2 stops.
At this point, we are feeling a little bit defeated because even after turning on Google Maps, we struck out with finding flamenco music and churros and chocolate. The most recent spot we checked out, they did confirm they offer churros, but only in the mornings. So if you want to try churros and chocolate, you're going to have to start looking for it before 9 p.m. Now, the silver lining in all this is that we happened to stumble across a beer bar right across the street.
Now, while Birros Deluxe definitely did not have churros, they did have a huge selection of beer, many of which are difficult, if not impossible, to find in the States. And Skylar couldn't have been happier to find a few of his favorite Belgian beers on draft for only around half of what they would cost back at home. The beers were delicious, the service was great, and Skylar would have gladly stayed here for longer, but our train the next morning was an early one, so it was time to get some sleep.
So we are about to check out, but I wanted to quickly show you what around $80 a day will get you here in downtown Malaga. Here's the little kitchen and dining area downstairs. And up here is the bed and the bathroom. The place treated us really well, but it is time to go.
So we got checked out of our Airbnb, and we actually had to walk a ways to get to a street that cars could actually drive on, but we did eventually find one, and we got our Uber ordered. We are now on our way to the train station, and then we'll be heading to Seville. So we got to our platform at the train station about 20 minutes before it's scheduled to leave, but it looks like they're already letting people on. There's our high-speed train. Can we just get on any of them, you think? Oh, we do have specific seats. I don't think this train is going to be anywhere close to full. so we didn't have enough time to grab breakfast this morning, but we did pick up these our first night in Malaga, so we're enjoying them on the train this morning. And I gotta say that Spanish corn nuts are frickin' delicious.
Trying to get to our hotel has been a crazy journey. All these pathways are so narrow, and they're also full of oranges. There's a lot more out here. Look at how many are on the trees still. Oranges are literally just falling from trees. One landed right next to this guy on the sidewalk. So we just got checked into our room here in Seville. Now we had gone to reception to drop our bags off to go and explore. They let us know that our room was actually ready. Now this has to be the most unique room we've ever stayed in. We've never been in a room that has not only one, but two chandeliers. There's one above the bed and one in the bathroom. Now the bathroom does have your typical shower, but it also has a clawfoot tub. But I think what we're most excited for has to be our balcony. So right through here, we have got a view of the city. Now, even though we're staying right in the city, it feels like we're in an orange grove. It's clear that it is orange season, and we have a view of literally thousands of oranges. This is how close the oranges are to our balcony. I don't have a long reach at all. Look at that.
So the guy at the hotel when we checked in said that these oranges are not very good. They're not sweet, but I like things that aren't sweet, so I'm gonna try it. They're like a combination of an orange and a lemon. I kind of like it actually, but they have a lot of seeds in them. Most people probably wouldn't like it too much. So as you can probably tell, the weather here in Seville is not too great right now, and we are starving, so we decided to go try to find the one food that we haven't had in Spain yet that we've really been wanting to have, and that is paella. Now, because we don't just want to be wandering around aimlessly in the rain, we did decide to use Google Maps. We Googled the best paella in the area, and that's where we're heading to next. Oh, actually, there's one more thing we have to try here in Spain, and that is Jamie's churros and chocolate, so hopefully we'll get that after paella.
Thankfully, Vendala was only a couple blocks away, but it was completely packed inside, so we ate outside in a covered area. Skylar ordered a Spanish doppelbock, which ended up being his favorite Spanish beer of the entire trip. And I got to try a bit of the house wine, which was quite tasty. We ordered the paella and a half order of the artichoke appetizer. The stuffed artichoke was covered in some delicious white sauce, and the paella came out steaming hot and stuffed with seafood. We both agreed that our favorite part of the paella had to be the calamari. After grabbing a late lunch, we tried to find some churros and chocolate, but all of the highly rated spots happened to be closed on Sundays. So we decided that would have to wait until tomorrow, and we ended up at a coffee shop instead. We both ordered vanilla cappuccinos, which we found to have the perfect balance of sweetness and bitterness. After coffee, the weather still wasn't cooperating, so we decided it would be a good time to visit the Seville Cathedral.
Skylar just said he didn't think this was a street that cars could drive on, and then one comes right through here. The sidewalks leave you just enough room to get out of the way of the cars.
Your mirror just clears out that like here.
Oh my gosh, it's so narrow.
Because we were visiting the cathedral so late in the day, staff recommended we make the trek up the bell tower first, before exploring the rest of the cathedral. The climb to the top is 80 meters, which is equivalent to a 25-story building. The path through the tower consists of 34 ramps and 17 narrow stairs.
On the way up, there are a few areas you can step off and really enjoy the view. I do wish it was sunny today, but it's still a nice view of the city. It does kind of feel like we're going through a tunnel, a very long, winding tunnel. We've got to be really close to the top now.
When we arrived at the top, we were surprised to see how many bells the tower houses, as well as how large they are, as they look so small from the streets below around the cathedral. We were in the tower when one of the bells rang, but we were unfortunately on the wrong side of the tower to see it. We were fortunate enough to take in views from all sides of the tower before it started to rain again and the visibility drastically decreased. We took that as a sign that it was time for us to make our way back down to the cathedral.
So the Seville Cathedral is even older than the one we visited in Malaga. This one was constructed from 1402 to 1506. So this one only took a little over 100 years, and it's actually bigger than the one in Malaga. So they must have had a lot more people working on this one.
The Seville Cathedral is the 4th largest church in the world and the largest Gothic cathedral in the world. We were so impressed by the intricate ceilings, grand architecture, giant organs, colorful stained glass, and the altar. Our footage can't even come close to conveying the feeling of being inside such a massive and historic structure, so we would highly recommend taking the time to visit when in Seville.
So when we climbed that tower, we went all the way up to where those bells are, and along the way you could peek out of all of those windows.
So this city is absolutely beautiful, but it's kind of weird having all of these smashed oranges around everywhere. You really got to watch where you're walking. Uh-oh. We really need to find a place to get inside and have some food. There appears to be a ferocious dog up ahead of us. Getting a little nervous. Oh man, look at all the oranges on this street. Holy cow. So we found a dinner spot we're really excited for right by the cathedral. That atmosphere is really cool, and like most of the restaurants around here, they do have a tapas menu, and we actually ordered 4 of them. We got the seafood and octopus salad, we got a cuttlefish and prawn meatball, and the other 2 haven't come out yet, but we will show them to you in a little bit. And of course, I also had to get some sangria. Now, I am not a big red wine drinker, but this sangria here is starting to grow on me. It's really good.
I can say I have never had a meatball quite like that, but it is really good. The fish taste is very subtle, and I like the black rice with it.
The octopus here in Spain is just fantastic. That's so good. And this salad has a lot of olive oil in it, but I really like it.
Our goat cheese with bitter orange jam has arrived, and it looks fantastic.
So some goat cheese you can hardly tell is goat cheese. This goat cheese definitely tastes like goat cheese, but it's really well balanced out by that bitter orange jam. I really like it, and I'm wondering if that bitter orange jam might actually be made out of the oranges that we've been seeing all over in the streets around here, because those are really bitter oranges.
So our last dish has arrived. It combines chicken, goat cheese, bacon, and caramel. And we had no idea what it was going to look like, and it does seem like it's fried. Really excited to try it. So this is probably going to sound really weird, but it kind of reminds me of a very gourmet version of the McDonald's chicken nugget and their barbecue sauce.
I really wasn't expecting to agree with Jamie, but I totally understand where she's coming from. It really does kind of taste like a chicken nugget, but if you were to add bacon and a little bit of goat cheese, as much as I hate to admit it, I love McDonald's chicken nuggets, and I really love these as well.
As soon as we walked out this morning, I heard another thud. These oranges are falling everywhere. You really do have to be careful.
Good morning. As you can probably tell, it is another rainy, dreary day here in Seville, and we got off to a really late start this morning. It's been a disaster. Jamie woke up a little bit before me, and she was kind enough to bring me coffee in bed, and it's the super dark, almost espresso-like European coffee, and I proceeded to fall asleep. Now, let me give you a little bit of background. We got into Spain 3 days ago. We hardly slept at all on that flight, and I basically hardly slept since then either. I think I've just been pretty much running on adrenaline. I've just been so excited to finally be in Europe that I just haven't been able to sleep, but that changed last night. It finally caught up to me. When we got home, I laid down in bed, and I think I was sleeping within 5 seconds. Back to this morning, Jamie brought me coffee in bed, and I proceeded to fall asleep while drinking that coffee. And you probably know where this is going, but our bed sheets, they're totally white, as are the pillowcases and even the comforter. When I woke up from that sleep, I must have jumped a little bit and that coffee went everywhere. So we spent the first hour or so of this morning trying to get those coffee stains out of our bed sheets. Now, I think we did a pretty decent job. We'll see what they look like after they dry. We're gonna try to continue what we were doing a couple days ago in Malaga. We're gonna walk around the city and explore without maps, and we'll see what we get up to.
Now the sun is trying to peek out through the clouds. We're seeing a little bit of blue sky, but they are moving quite fast. I think it's going to rain on and off all day today. Now because we have yet to try churros and chocolate, we're starting off heading in the direction of a place that is known for having good churros and chocolate. But honestly, I don't have a lot of confidence that we're going to make it there without Google Maps. Along the way, we'll probably find somewhere to give them a try. And we'll also pop into a coffee shop since somebody back there spilled most of his. You can do a horse and carriage ride. I think a guy yesterday said it was like 45 bucks for a couple.
Something like that, yeah, it was pricey.
We have already found our way back to the cathedral. It is kind of hard to miss. Now today, the cathedral is going to be a major landmark for us. So as long as we can figure out where that is, then we can kind of navigate from there. Before we leave this area, I do want to show you guys the line to get into the cathedral. And just for reference, this is Monday late morning. Now, if you don't get your tickets online, you have to walk around that corner over there to the ticket office. So we've made it to an area of town where the restaurants and cafes are replaced with shops. They're also quaint and are full of character. Almost fall with your coffee.
It would have been the second coffee I lost today. Oh my gosh. So it's almost noon by now, and I finally got my coffee for the day. We found a really cool little coffee shop. It was pretty much standing room only, but that's pretty typical here for Seville. But this cafe con leche is super creamy, it's delicious, and best of all, it only costs €3.
So we came around the corner of the coffee shop and found this really cool building. I know Skylar had to go scope out the pizza and this little breakfast spot. See, there's another one where it's just standing room only. There are holes on the side of this building and birds are going in and out of them. But that parrot just came out of that hole.
So this place offers sangria for takeaway. I may not know where we are, but I am loving this neighborhood.
We just found a spot that advertises churros. We peeked inside, it looks really cool. So we have given up on making it to the spot we had initially identified, and we're just gonna get churros here. I think we have found a really good spot because everyone in here is eating churros and chocolate. Now ours just arrived, they were just made, they're super hot, and I cannot wait to give them a try.
Now, even though I don't love chocolate, I have to admit that is really good. I will say we've had churros in the US a few different times before, and after trying these churros, I'd say the ones in the US are very Americanized. These are completely different, but in my opinion, they're much better. Now, one kind of crazy thing we notice a lot of in Malaga, and even more so here in Seville, is all of the pork legs hanging from the ceilings in restaurants. Here in Seville, it's probably a 50-50 chance that a restaurant's gonna have them.
After leaving our churro spot, we noticed that we could see part of another popular attraction in Seville, so we decided to walk toward it.
We've made it to another landmark, which from our prior research, this is the Setas de Sevilla. It is giving us a little bit of relief from the rain. You can purchase tickets to go up and walk on top of this, but because the weather is not cooperating, we're not going to pay the fee to do that. But from up here, we can actually see the cathedral again, so we have a little bit of an idea where we're at. But before we leave this area, I do want to talk about that churro experience because it was not what I expected at all. The churros were a little bit crispy on the outside, but the inside, they were a little chewy and a little soft. They weren't sweet at all. All the sweetness came from that chocolate. Now that chocolate was dark, so the chocolate wasn't overly sweet as well. Overall, we really enjoyed the experience.
So in both Malaga and here in Sevilla, you do see a lot of scooters. Now you can rent them from a lot of shops around town, and you can also rent them through Cabify, which is a ride-hailing app. They do also have Uber here, but I'm not sure if you can rent scooters through them.
We came across this park area. On either side of it, there's a bunch of residential buildings, and at the end of the park, there are two trees. They look like banyan trees. They are giant and they are gorgeous.
So now that we know where the cathedral tower is, we're going to start heading in that general direction because we know right next to the cathedral is the Real Alcazar, which is another major landmark that we wanted to make sure we got to today. I'm sure we'll run across some more cool stuff along the way too.
I love that we just stumble upon random churches as we're walking through these Spanish cities.
I bet all the plants are at least loving this rain.
So another reason we have a hard time knowing where we are is because we keep going down these roads that just look really cute, even if it's in the wrong direction.
So in our attempt to get back to the cathedral, we came across this plaza that we noticed had this huge map on it. So we decided to check it out to make sure we were going in the right direction. Now I noticed that this plaza is actually called Plaza de Pilatos, and I knew from my prior research that there's a landmark in Sevilla called Casa de Pilatos. And after looking around a little bit, we realized it's right over there. Unfortunately though, it's closed for filming. I don't know what they're filming. It kind of seems like maybe a movie or something. It's a pretty big deal, I think, because there are a lot of camera crew going in and out of there. Unfortunately though, that means we're not going to be able to get in today, but we would recommend checking it out if you get a chance. Just from the photos I've seen of it, it looks really beautiful. So I ended up talking to one of the filming crew members, and I had to ask him what they were filming over there, and he said it was The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon. I guess it's a spin-off of the Walking Dead series on AMC. We've never seen it, but we're definitely going to try to watch it now. If you've ever seen that show, let us know in the comments if it's any good. So we made it to Avenida Melendez Pelayo, which is one of the major roads here in Sevilla. As you can see, it is very busy, and it's definitely not nearly as enjoyable to walk down as those smaller residential windy streets are. But I do know that if we stick to this road, it's going to get us really close to the Real Alcazar and another landmark that we really wanted to visit here in Sevilla.
Cool, we're kind of getting to know this city. This is the place that we had lunch at the first day when we got in.
Plaza de España was completed in 1929. It's the most well-known plaza in the city and is free to visit. Mosaic tiles that represent each of the provinces in the country line the foot of the semicircular building. Several bridges cross the canal in front of the building, and at times, visitors are allowed to rent boats and paddle below. In the middle of the courtyard is a huge fountain, which was a little wild on a windy day. We really enjoyed taking in the intricate tile work and grand architecture.
The Plaza de España is located in a much larger park, and on a nicer day we would definitely show you more of it, but here it's wet, it's windy, it's almost 4 o'clock, and the only thing we've eaten today were those churros, so we're gonna go find something to eat. Okay, so we found another city map. We are in the San Fernando area. Well, this area is very close to the Alcazar.
So we decided to stop into El Rincón de Beirut for dinner, and as much as we've been enjoying all the Spanish food the last few days, it will be nice to try something different. Plus, we've never had Lebanese food before. They also have Moroccan food here too, but we'll be eating plenty of Moroccan food when we're in Morocco in a few days. And as you can see, they also have sangria. Ooh, that one is carbonated. It's good.
Our appetizer dolma arrived first, which is grape leaves stuffed with rice and vegetables. Oh my gosh. Oh, that looks great. So everything here came out very fast. We ordered the dolma appetizer as well as some shawarma wrap thing, which is one of their house specialties, along with, I don't remember the name of it, but it kind of looks like a soup. It's called moussaka limassol. So I never thought eating a leaf would taste so good. It's a little salty, it's a little tangy, and the pomegranate adds a little sweetness.
So I'm gonna try the moussaka limassol. It has beef, eggplant, onion, cheese, and something else that I don't know how to pronounce. Oh yeah, lots of cheese. So we were kind of expecting that dish to be like a soup, but I'd say it's more like lasagna actually. The meat in it though is really tender, and I don't know what kind of cheese they use, but it is so good. I would highly recommend this dish.
And last is our shawarma wrap. So I really like the lamb inside there. I tried it with the sauce, and honestly, I like it without the sauce. We are almost back to the cathedral area, so the Alcazar has got to be right around here. So this is a different view of the cathedral that we haven't seen up close yet. It's really neat to see all the spires on the top of the cathedral. So I think we might have bad news.
What?
So this entrance is for the ticket office here, but that sign says the entrance is around that way, and we passed that giant door and it was completely closed. So I have a feeling it's probably closed for the day.
I swear it said it's open till 7.
Well, let's go in the box office and find out.
I'm guessing that's the box office that's gated up. So bad news, guys. The real Alcazar is currently closed. When I had done my research before we ever came to Spain, I thought it was open till 7, and it is open till 7 during a lot of the year, but during the winter months, unfortunately, it's only open till 5. I did scan this barcode and it said we actually could have watched this nighttime light show that they do here, but they actually canceled it today due to the weather. Now currently, as you can probably tell, the sun has come out. It's actually pretty good, so I think they could have had it. The weather's quite nice now, but that's the risk we took when we decided to navigate this city today without using technology. I feel like if we were using our phones to plan, at some point we would have looked up the hours of this place and been sure to get here before the 5 p.m. closing time, but I'm sure we're still gonna find plenty to do tonight.
We spent the next hour or so just walking around and taking in as much of the city as possible, knowing that the next morning we'd be off to a whole new area of Spain. We loved walking the narrow pathways and finding small businesses we didn't expect around what seemed like every corner. Eventually, we wandered into Plaza de la Alfalfa and found a live musician. So we decided to take a seat outside at a restaurant to enjoy the music and more tapas.
Como alcalde que se llama, vive y enamorado. Cada día te quiero más.
After the musician was finished, we ended up trying 3 tapas: squid balls, an empanada, and a pork cheek dish. While all 3 were good, the pork cheek was by far our favorite of the 3. It was like a tender roast on top of creamy potatoes.
Skylar just got a limoncello on the house.
So we made it back to our hotel, and even though our pillowcases and bed sheets were still a little bit damp, we were really happy to find that you could barely tell that they had been covered in coffee. Now, even though the weather here in Seville did not cooperate with us hardly at all, and we didn't get to see a few of the places that we were really hoping to see, we still had an amazing time in this city.
Our first day of exploring the less urban side of Spain actually began in Seville, from where we took a 2-hour bus ride to Conil de la Frontera, which we learned goes by just Conil for short. The bus ride was only $20 each with luggage and was actually quite enjoyable, as the seats were comfortable and the views of the countryside were great. Before we knew it, we had arrived in Conil, where we dropped off our luggage at our hotel before finding a place to eat.
So we're here at Pepa's, not really sure how you pronounce this place, but it was only a couple minutes walk from our hotel room and it's rated really well, and we definitely see why, because their pastry display looked amazing. Now we got a cappuccino, a croissant that's stuffed with some sort of cream, and a sandwich with special ham, avocado, and arugula. It all looks great, and it was all under $15. I'm pretty sure back in Florida this meal would cost us at least $30.
I'm just gonna take a big bite out of this. So this is one thing that definitely tastes as good as it looks. The cream inside, I don't know how to describe it. It's kind of like a Bavarian cream, but different.
So the ham in this sandwich we've seen all over Malaga and Seville, and it's delicious, but we have not yet had it in a sandwich, and this bread smells really fresh. I'm excited to try this. So the bread's a little bit drier than I thought, but it is good. The ham's delicious. I wish there was more of it. Overall, it is a solid sandwich, but the highlight of this meal is definitely that cream stuffed croissant.
No, I actually really like this bread, especially with a little bit of the olive oil on it. So while we were enjoying our food, we were talking about which pastries we wanted to come back to enjoy tomorrow. But we decided we better check Google for the hours, and thank goodness we did, because they are actually closed tomorrow. So we had to pick out 2 more pastries to enjoy in the morning, or maybe even later tonight. After lunch, we checked into our hotel and spent a little bit of time booking things for the rest of our trip. Now we're out exploring the city, and thankfully the sun has come out, but it's still pretty windy and quite cold. But that's not going to prevent us from going to the beach. So we got a little bit sidetracked. We were heading to the beach and we saw this path, so we just had to see where it leads. It kind of leads up to this little forest. So the path eventually led up here. It looks like we'll be able to access the beach over there. On our walk down to the beach, we noticed there was a restaurant here, so we looked it up on Google. It is rated pretty good, and it's open tonight. So I think we're gonna plan to come here for sunset. So here's the restaurant, and there's the beach. It's gonna be a great view.
But before we could eat dinner, we'd have to work up an appetite, and we found plenty of beachfront walkways in Conil to do just that. Although with so many unique things to stop and look at along this gorgeous stretch of beach, we weren't getting a whole lot of walking in. But eventually, we made our way northwards towards some beautiful beachfront bluffs that we could see off in the distance. And while we had no idea if we could hike all the way to them, we were sure gonna try.
Now, the first thing that surprised us about Conil de la Frontera was how easy and inexpensive it was to get here. We came here on a bus from Seville, and there were actually multiple buses we could have chosen to get here. Now, that differs greatly from in the United States, where most cities of only around 20,000 or so, like Conil, aren't going to have any public transportation going to them. And if they do, it's probably only going to be 1 route per day, and it's also probably going to be pretty expensive. So it's safe to say that the ease of access to the rural areas via public transportation is one thing that really surprised us in a good way about Spain.
Now, we had heard horror stories of travelers taking buses in other countries, but thankfully our experience was a good one. Our bus looked to be very new, it was comfortable, and it had charging ports. But one thing that surprised me is that they did not announce the stops. So we really had to pay attention and follow along on Google Maps to get off on the right stop. That was very different than the train ride we took between Malaga and Seville, where every stop was announced.
Now, getting around within Conil and other small Spanish cities is not quite as easy as it is in the bigger ones, as ride-hailing services like Uber, Bolt, and Cabify did not seem to operate here. But we had no problems walking around these smaller cities, and we did see several cabs driving around as well.
Oh, this pathway is just surrounded by flowers. Oh yeah, there's another viewpoint up here. This is a great view of the water, the beach, and the cliffs in the distance. So at the last lookout, there was a path that somebody went down, and we decided to follow and see where it led. This is beautiful. I love that there are so many flowers here, even though it's winter time. It is a lot greener than I expected it would be this time of year. What do you think? Should we keep going?
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
All right. Now, like the beach towns where we live on the Gulf Coast of Florida, they have a high season and a low season. We are definitely visiting here during the low season, and a lot of the businesses are closed. And as you can probably see behind me, there are not very many people on the beach.
But that's probably about where the similarities to Florida beach towns end. Now, as you can probably tell, we are up really high on a bluff right now, overlooking this beautiful beach, and you aren't gonna find anything like that in Florida because Florida is incredibly flat. Now, the beaches here actually remind me a lot more of the beaches in California with all of the cliffs that line them. But I had mentioned earlier that the meal we got was probably like half the price of what it would cost in Florida. Well, California is even more expensive than Florida, and that same meal in California would probably cost 3 times as much. So being able to get this gorgeous California-like scenery and beach experience while spending so much less for food and entertainment is definitely another thing that surprised us in a very good way about Spain.
There's a lot of RVs down there. What a great place to camp. I don't think there's any beach hike like this in Florida. Wow. It just keeps going.
So we finally made it to the top of this big cliff that we've been hiking towards. There's this abandoned house up here. There's also what appears to be a restaurant over there. So we're gonna go see what's going on over there, and then we're gonna try to find a path down to the beach. So apparently this place is closed, which is a bummer because they got a really good looking menu and some pretty good prices too. Now, if that tiki bar was open, we would definitely be spending some time here because these views are unbelievable. So we were really planning on trying to get back to that restaurant for sunset, but now we're kind of thinking we might just want to hang out up here to watch it because these views are so good. I don't think Jamie wants to really have to walk all the way back on the beach in the dark though, so we'll probably start heading down soon.
And while it definitely was not easy leaving these amazing views, it helped knowing we'd have a beautiful beach walk all the way to our dinner spot.
We did eventually make it down to the beach. We had to come check out this rock area. The tide does appear to be out right now, so we're able to kind of walk through this area. It's kind of cool because when the waves come in, you can hear rocks hitting each other. There's some different looking shells here too.
So we're finally heading back in the direction we came from, and we honestly weren't planning on spending anywhere close to that much time out on that trail. But as we went further, the views just kept getting better. But the timing actually kind of worked out well because now we should be arriving at that restaurant right around sunset.
Now there are a few different restaurants right along the beach here, like this one, and there's one up there. Now this definitely looks like our kind of place. We're gonna have to come back here when it's not low season, because there's so many more places we would want to go to. So we are trying to get up there, and we've had a hard time finding a path to get there, but we think this one leads to some stairs that will hopefully get us up there. Oh, there's a horse right here. It's furry. It's not like a full-size horse, but it's also not a mini horse.
You like pets, buddy?
It's like, I like snacks. Do you have a snack for me?
Oh, I got 2 pets.
It wants snacks.
Although we did find some horses on the beach when we visited the island of Vieques in Puerto Rico, we'd never expect to find that in Florida, and it was definitely a highlight of this day in Conil.
Oh yeah, this is definitely gonna get us to where we need to go. Stairs run right along this cliff edge.
It's kind of crazy how this whole parking lot over here just sits on the top of this cliff. So you get out of your car and you already have an amazing view of the beach.
We're used to seeing palm trees, so this is kind of neat to have a different type of tree at the beach.
So we did make it back to our dinner spot with a few minutes to spare before sunset, but I'm not real confident we're going to be able to find a seat there because it looks really packed. So we lucked out. There were still a couple of spots open on the patio, and the views are every bit as good as we thought they would be.
So this spot ended up only offering a small variety of tapas, so we had some snacks and some drinks. Now those tapas don't compare to what we had in Seville and in Malaga, but the views here were so much better than any of the restaurants in Malaga or Seville. Next, we're gonna go find another place to have a little bit more food.
So we just left our Sunset Beach spot and we got 2 tapas, a cappuccino, a juice, and 2 really good beers. And our bill was under $17. Now, even though we're on like day 5 in Spain now, these prices still continue to blow my mind, and I think it's safe to say we have a little bit of room left in the budget for another spot for dinner tonight. So we are now walking to our dinner spot. It's about an 11-12 minute walk, and we are getting pretty cold. It gets chilly here in Conil in the winter. The walk here kind of reminds us like we're back in Malaga or Seville. It's got brick streets that are super narrow and surrounded by old buildings on both sides. We made it to our dinner spot here at Caminito, and the menu does seem to have a lot of Asian influence, but in typical Spanish style, most of their menu items are available as tapas. We ordered a tuna and potato dish, a roasted duck bao bun, a cachito, and a roasted pork leg dish. And Jamie ordered a mango lemonade, and I ordered a Negroni, which actually came served in a flask within a book, and I didn't even realize that flask was in there for several minutes.
All right.
Now, despite this being one of the most expensive meals we had in Spain, we can't say it was the best, as the cachito was quite small and the tuna potato dish was kinda weird. But we did both really enjoy the pork dish and the bao bun, and Skylar said that this Negroni was one of the best he'd ever had.
After dinner, we tried to find some flamenco music because there were a couple spots that said they were open on Google, but both of them were closed. We're realizing there are even more businesses that are closed during season or have more limited hours. But we took that as a sign that we just needed to come back to our hotel because we knew we had these to try. They wrap these up so nicely. So we got this blackberry thing and a pistachio cheesecake. So we forgot to ask for utensils. This is gonna be a little bit messy. Look at the inside. It kind of is the consistency of a cheesecake, but maybe a little bit lighter. It's very good. I told Skylar to be very careful, and he's already like made a mess.
I don't know how to eat this without a fork.
We don't need to be cleaning sheets at another place.
No. I think it will pair very well with my $5 bottle of Spanish wine.
Oh, we didn't even tell them. We stopped by. Skylar! Well, Skylar's going to be washing sheets again. Skylar's now decided that using his wine that we got from a store on the way home.
Spanish wine is widely known to be a great stain remover.
Skylar is now eating the rest of the blackberry dessert over the sink.
Yep. Not risking it anymore.
We just decided to go for it, and we're gonna have this one too. This is a pistachio cheesecake. It's very interesting feeling. It doesn't seem to have a crust maybe, or if it is a crust, it's a soft one. Do you see how much that's moving around there?
It looks pretty jiggly.
Yeah, pretty jiggly. So the flavor is really good, but that consistency, maybe if we would have eaten it right away, maybe it would have been more of your typical cheesecake consistency, but it is really good flavor. Skylar has made himself a spoon out of the size of the container that it came in.
So this thing looks disgusting, but I think that's absolutely delicious.
Our second day in Conil began with cloudy skies and empty streets, as this tourist town seemed to be in hibernation for the winter. It is feeling quite strange to be in a coastal city when it's in its off season. There are just entire streets that are closed up.
This is one of the few shops we found close to the beach that is actually open.
Now we had to start our day off back out on this trail because we know it's going to be a while before we're able to experience this great of a beachfront hike again.
But our second hike on this trail was even more enjoyable, as we got to watch several paragliders drifting up and down the beach, and one of them we even got to meet. So shout out to Leonard from Germany, who's a really nice guy and far more brave than us, for teaching us a little bit about paragliders. We learned that Leonard's setup is actually a bit of a cross between a paraglider and kiteboard, which allows him to be able to maneuver a bit more aggressively than the other paragliders. While Skylar was convinced that he'd love to try paragliding someday, it's safe to say I'm still on the fence.
Now, unfortunately, we don't have much more time here in Conil because we have to go to the bus stop this afternoon. Now, our hotel did allow us to store our luggage so we can be out and about and explore the city a little bit more. That is something else that surprised us here in Spain. There are places to store your luggage everywhere. And while we're able to do it here at the hotel, whenever we were in the larger cities, there were places to store your luggage for maybe a couple bucks for the entire day. So it's really easy to enjoy a city, even if you're traveling with luggage.
Now getting back to our hotel, the lodging in Spain is another thing we were amazed by, as we were able to consistently find very nice hotels for far less than they would cost back at home. For example, this hotel that we stayed at in Conil was less than $70 for the night.
From speaking with Leonard and residents here in Conil, we learned that it's not very common for American tourists to visit this area of Spain, but it is very popular among German tourists. Now, you will find more American tourists in Seville and Malaga, but those spots are even more popular among British tourists.
So we had to get off of the trail and head back into town because our bus leaves in a couple of hours and we still got to grab lunch. Now, just looking around at the restaurants near the beach and in the Old Town area, I'd say at least 3 out of 4 are closed right now, but thankfully we did find one that is open and is conveniently located right next to our hotel.
I ordered a cappuccino and Skylar ordered a cafe con leche, and mine definitely looks prettier. Like most of the coffees we've had here in Spain, it's very strong. I'm gonna add a little bit of sugar to it.
So 2 of our 3 food orders have arrived. This one is some sort of a garlic shrimp crepe. We think this one has tuna in it, but we're not exactly sure what's in any of these items because the menus are only in Spanish. We do use our translator app, which works pretty well, but it doesn't accurately translate all of the words, so the menu items are a bit of a mystery. Ever since I saw them making fresh calamari at that market in Malaga, I have been craving it, and I finally got it today. It's very lightly breaded, a little bit, but not very crispy. It really allows you to taste the actual squid. I do think it could use a little bit of salt, but if I find some salt for it, I know I'm gonna love it.
While neither the calamari or this fried tuna dish were great, the shrimp crepe absolutely was. And while we can't say that this meal was as good as some of the ones we had in Malaga and Seville, at just 28 euros total, we still thought it was a bargain. But with our first meal of the day out of the way, it was time to grab our luggage and make our way to the bus station.
So we arrived at the bus station here in Conil about 40 minutes prior to our bus's departure, which means we had some time to kill. Luckily, they do have a little cafe here at this bus station, even though it is a small one. They serve drinks and sandwiches, so I got myself a local beer, I got Jamie a juice, and we shared a sandwich. Now, we have yet to have chorizo on this trip, so I got a chorizo sandwich. It was just chorizo on bread, but the chorizo was really high quality, as was the bread, so it was actually a surprisingly good sandwich, and both of those drinks and the sandwich was only 8 euros total.
Next, we are actually taking a break from exploring Spain.
When we learned that Morocco is only 9 miles from Spain and can be accessed quickly, inexpensively, and easily from its neighbor to the north, okay, maybe it wouldn't be so easy in our case. But we still knew we could not pass up the opportunity to visit Africa when we could literally see it during one of our adventures in Spain. So after 5 days of exploring in Andalusia, we caught a bus to Tarifa on the southern tip of Spain, where we'd be catching a ferry to Morocco the next morning. Or so we thought. We only had 3 objectives upon arriving in Tarifa: finding our hotel, grabbing some food, and getting some sleep.
These houses all have really cute terraces on top. Oh, we can see another bell tower already. I think we can already tell we're gonna love this city.
We figured our Tarifa hotel would have a ton of character as well, considering the Medina in which it's located dates all the way back to the 8th century. But we were still a little bit surprised by just how unique and beautiful this property was. Now, our accommodations on this trip just keep getting better and better. We are in Tarifa and we booked a standard room, which is basically this bed, and a very interesting bathroom through there. We love all of the exposed brick and stone, but when we got here, the staff was so kind. They left this door open for us and said we could use the amenities through here. And that was because nobody booked this room that it connects with. I think both of them can be booked as a family room. Now look at this. The master suite is magnificent. We love all the lights in here and more of the exposed stone. It also has its own bathroom. It's a little bit more modern. And we also love all of the windows with the really old wooden shutters. It's too bad we are only here for one night. And I almost forgot to show you, the key to this room is literally like a key to a castle.
So our time here in Tarifa was supposed to be pretty low-key. We were just gonna check into our Airbnb, grab some food at a restaurant, and go to bed early. But while we were doing laundry, we got a notification that our ferry tomorrow out of Tarifa to Morocco was canceled due to weather. The next ferry we could get on out of Tarifa wasn't until 5 p.m., but they told us that the ferry out of the neighboring town, Algeciras, was running tomorrow morning. So we booked that ferry. I think it leaves at 10 in the morning, but that means we got to get up super early tomorrow morning to take a bus from Tarifa to Algeciras to catch that ferry. So since we got to be up so early, we decided to just grab some pizza to take back to the hotel, which we already enjoyed up here on the rooftop terrace area. We also got Jamie a dessert that I know she cannot wait to try.
Even though things have not gone very right for us tonight, at least we had good timing with the storm because it is pouring down rain, and it just started after we got back to our Airbnb after stopping to get this dessert.
This is frickin' crazy. Jamie's just over here enjoying her meringue. I really hope they let us on this bus, because if they don't, it's going to be a really expensive taxi ride. So online, they'd had 2 different locations where the bus could leave from. We just picked the one that was closer to our hotel. We got here. There is no ticket counter, so we are really hoping the driver can sell us tickets.
Thankfully, the bus driver took cash and we were able to catch a ride to Algeciras for just a few bucks each. And after around a half-hour ride down some pitch-black roads, we'd arrived.
So thankfully we were able to buy our tickets on the bus. They were only €5 total, and we arrived in Algeciras about 2 hours before our ferry was scheduled to depart. So we had plenty of time to spare. We were able to enjoy a pastry and some coffees. They were really good. We are told that we'd be able to get on our ferry around 8:20. I think it's about 8:26 right now, so it's time to go get on this ferry.
We've made it to the area where we wait to board our ferry. Now, we don't understand a lot of Spanish, but we think the staff have said that our ferry has not yet arrived. Now, considering that our prior ferry was already canceled, we're a little concerned that this one might be canceled or be significantly delayed. There was just an announcement, and we think it means that it's time to board. We are really excited to see this ferry. It's supposed to be able to hold like 900 people and over 100 cars.
So we made it onto the ferry. It took a little while to make it through customs, but we finally did, and now we're sailing through the Strait of Gibraltar. We can see Spain on one side and Morocco on the other. We're pretty impressed with this ferry too. It's got a nice little cafe here, and it also has a duty-free shop.
So I don't think this is coming through in our videos, but even though this is such a huge ferry, it is rocking quite a bit. We're starting to get into rougher waters, and we definitely understand why the ferry from Tarifa was canceled. We did venture out briefly on the sides of the ferry to get views of Spain and Morocco, but it was pretty windy and kind of cold. We also noticed that the stairs to go up to the very top were closed off. So for reference, we started out this morning here in Tarifa, and we were planning on hopping on the ferry to get down here, but instead we had to take the bus over here and hop on a different ferry, which is going to bring us just over here. We're going to have to hop on another bus to get to Tangier. How's it feel to be in Morocco?
Oh, relief.
Yeah, it was kind of a stressful morning. Wow, I had no idea there were actual semis on this.
Now, since we ended up taking a ferry out of Algeciras instead of Tarifa, we arrived in the port known as Tangier Med. which meant we'd still have a bit more travel time before we'd be in our final Moroccan destination of Old Town Tangier.
We have finally made it to Tangier. Our ferry ride took a little bit longer than expected today. We were planning on waiting for a bus to take us from the port to Tangier city. We're told it's only like 30 cents, it's super cheap, but since our time is very limited, we had met another couple on the ferry and we all decided to go in on a cab, and that was the right decision. The drive is right along the coast, it goes up into the mountains just a little bit, and this country is gorgeous. We had amazing views and our driver even stopped off a few times so we could get some photos and videos. We got dropped off just steps from the Medina, which is where our hotel is, so we're gonna go find it.
While they're preparing our room, they brought us welcome tea and biscuits. The tea is really good, and I think Skylar has tried one of the biscuit cookies.
Yeah, it's decent.
Once our room was ready, the staff showed us around. We loved all the bold colors and detailed woodwork, but we didn't stay in our room long as we quickly dropped off our luggage before checking out the rest of the hotel. We found a restaurant on the rooftop with fantastic views of the city.
We did read in the reviews that there is a mosque close to this hotel and you do hear the prayers. We haven't heard them yet.
We didn't end up dining here because we knew we'd be eating breakfast at the hotel the next morning and wanted to try food from other restaurants and food vendors in the Medina. Next, we were ready to go out and about in Tangier City to fully experience the Moroccan culture.
So after checking into our hotel, our first order of business was to get some local Moroccan currency. Now, if we would have been exchanging euros, they could have given us a really good rate at the hotel. But since we were exchanging US dollars, we had to go to a local currency exchange. Now, those places are all over here in Tangier, but we walked a little bit extra to go to one that was rated good on Google. Now that we have some local currency, we're gonna go do some exploring, try some local food, probably do a little bit of shopping, and definitely drink some Moroccan coffee since we're only running on about 4 hours of sleep.
We began by walking the streets and admiring what was available for purchase in the shops. We really enjoyed seeing the variety of foods and spices, especially the ones we weren't used to seeing in the States.
So we've been walking around this city for maybe 10 or 15 minutes, and already we can tell it's a whole different feel when compared to the Spanish cities that we have visited on this trip. While the buildings and the roads and the chaos is very similar, here we're approached by a lot more vendors and even children. So it's hard to be polite and engage here because then you're pulled in all different directions. You kind of just have to walk away.
So we were having a hard time deciding if we were going to get food or a coffee first, but then we walked by a coffee shop, Medina, right behind me, and it really drew us in because it had both traditional Moroccan coffee and Moroccan pastries. Now, I always get cafe con leche whenever I can, but I also wanted a traditional Moroccan coffee, but they were able to do the Moroccan coffee with spices as a cafe con leche here, and it's absolutely delicious. The spices really take it to the next level, and Jamie will show you the pastries she got now.
Now, I asked the owner which pastry was his favorite because he had so many to choose from. He said this one was, and I can't even remember what he said is inside of it. And then I also got this chocolate thing with pistachio in it. I'll try his favorite first. So the outside is very crunchy and it has a sweet sauce on it, and I think inside of it is dates. I really like it. Now time for the chocolate pistachio.
Seems like you like that one better.
Well, I'm not saying I like it better, but this one reminds me of a Butterfinger.
I was going to say, it looks like a Butterfinger.
So when I tried it, it just reminded me of a Butterfinger.
But with pistachio.
Yeah, and I was surprised by that.
Cool. So since we didn't get into Tangier City until after 1 o'clock and have limited time here, and we really just want to try as much Moroccan food as possible, we decided to ask some of the locals what some good spots would be where we can just grab some good food to go. So they actually recommended a couple different spots, one of which is right behind me. We decided to get a kebab there, and it came with some French fries and some fresh bread. This whole meal was basically the equivalent of €4. I'm going to try some of this fresh bread first. So the bread itself isn't very flavorful, but I'm wondering if most people eat it with the kebab meat. So the bread does pull apart pretty easily, so I decided to put some of the kebab meat inside and make a little sandwich here. So as you can see, I am standing up now eating because I had to get my food off the ground so the cats didn't get it. The cats have discovered we have food. What do you think of those fries?
The French fries and the chicken are both good. We're gonna walk around and find another area to eat in, hopefully with a few less cats, because most of the time we were standing around here, there were cats literally fighting at our feet.
We eventually wandered into a large market. We were tempted to purchase some fresh produce, but were previously advised to stay away from anything that may have been rinsed with water, as it isn't recommended for tourists to drink. We did follow that advice and passed on the produce.
So we were starting to think that we had seen the majority of the Medina, and then we looked at Google Maps and realized there was a whole nother section that we hadn't even been to yet. So we went over to that section and we found a place that advertised live music. So we went in the door, went up some stairs, went up some more stairs, and then there was a room where it appeared that some people were singing karaoke. And then we went up like 3 more flights of stairs and we ended up on this rooftop that has some really great views. Now I will say we seem to be a little too old for this place. It's definitely somewhere that the younger kids hang out, but the good thing about that is that most of the young people here seem to speak pretty good English, and they're really friendly and always willing to give us suggestions.
We did end up spending some time here at the Buena Vista Tangier Club. We even met the owner, who was so welcoming and friendly. While I had a fresh orange juice, Skylar had his first and only beer in Morocco, and we both enjoyed listening to the live music. Next, we had to do some shopping, as we knew it was close to closing time for most of the shops in the Medina. And the next morning we'd be leaving early to catch our ferry back to Spain. Along the way, we found another thing we couldn't pass up trying.
So after discovering an entire new part of the Medina and exploring that for probably an hour or so, we were really striking out on finding street food. But then we did come across this. I forget the name of it, but they say it's basically Moroccan pizza, and I think it only cost €1. I have never had anything remotely like that before. It's not like pizza. It's shaped in a triangle like pizza, that's about it. You can really taste the spices though. I think that's basically what Moroccan food is all about, is all these unique spices that they use. This is very good. Very eggy, seems buttery, and you can just really taste these spices.
So after trying that Moroccan pizza, we had been in the Medina area for a few hours and we're starting to get a feel for the culture, so we just decided to go for it. And anybody that talked to us, we just went with them. So we ended up in a souvenir store. We bought some souvenirs. Skylar did haggle a little bit. We probably could have got a little bit of a better deal on our items, but we're still really happy with what we got for €20. After that, the store owner walked us to a restaurant, who he was friends with the owner there. There he showed us around the restaurant. Then the restaurant owner introduced us to one of his friends. One of his friends showed us around the Medina and talked to us a while and brought us to a natural health store.
Now, even though we kind of thought like we were in a never-ending loop of being passed off from store owner to store owner, we really did enjoy our time talking to them. And while they were all trying to sell us something, none of them were really that pushy. And also, having people show you around the Medina is kind of nice because it keeps you from walking into random people's houses, which I accidentally did once. I totally thought it was a shop because it was like full of mirrors and rugs and stuff. It was just someone's house that happened to have their front door open, but thankfully they were friendly and didn't really seem to care that much.
The sun just set, so we are going to head back to our hotel, drop off our souvenirs, and find someplace for dinner.
But before we could even do that, something else caught our attention.
So the street food vendors definitely seem to come out more at night here in the Medina. I came across another one. I don't remember what this was called, but I'm gonna give it a try. I think that's my favorite thing I've had in Morocco yet. It's kind of like one of those vanilla wafers, way better than that.
So we haven't even made it back to the hotel yet because there are all these food vendors out and about on the streets. Now this one kind of looks like shredded wheat cereal from the States, and it costs 10 in the local currency, which is about $1. It's a little messy, but a little crunchy, a little sweet. I do like it.
And it doesn't matter if it's messy when you're eating it outside.
Yeah, I like it a lot. I didn't get any in my initial bites, but it looks like there's some nuts in the middle.
I don't know if it's all of the sugar, the caffeine, or just the excitement of being in Morocco, but I am feeling surprisingly energized for having only 4 hours of sleep last night. I really hope it continues for the next few hours because we still got more to show you.
So we did make it back to the room. We're only gonna give you a really quick room tour because honestly, we wanna be out and about exploring. Now, as soon as we enter the room is the bathroom. I have to point out these doors. They are wooden and they are beautiful. Here's our sink, there's a shower back there, and we have got a toilet along with a bidet. The main living space here is so interesting. The ceiling is very intricate as well, painted bright colors. We also have some snacks over here. We haven't been here long enough to eat any of them. They kind of look like bells. They're pretty cute. And on our bed, we have got slippers. I think these are robes. And we've got a coffee machine and a refrigerator down here.
So when we came back to our hotel to drop off our souvenirs, we noticed that there was a live musician playing here in the downstairs restaurant area. Now this is an avocado orange juice. It definitely looks more like a smoothie than a juice. It's certainly not the most appetizing looking thing I've ever seen, but I bet it tastes good. Yeah, it's just like a creamy orange juice. You can only taste the avocado a little bit. That's pretty good.
After our stop at the hotel, it was time to try some more authentic Moroccan food. I was in charge of navigation and we only took a couple wrong turns before arriving at our dinner spot. It was a small restaurant full of bright colors and Moroccan decor. We started with an olive appetizer and bread, but our main dishes were what we were excited for. We ordered a couscous dish, a kebab dish, and tagine. While we enjoyed all 3 entrees, the tagine was by far our favorite, and we loved the flavor of the different spices used in this traditional clay pot stew. After dinner, we wandered the streets and alleys of Tangier. We did find Google Maps to work pretty good in this city, although it did sometimes lose track of us when we were in narrow walkways in between buildings. But it did always pick us back up eventually.
These streets really do look different at night because all the vendors closed up their shops, and there's a lot more scooters out. This is very different than the cities in Spain that we visited because those just came alive at night. Skylar is navigating us to one last spot, and it's one we've actually been to already.
We ended up going back to the Tangier Club to enjoy a mint tea and listen to some more live music before calling it a night and heading back to our hotel.
Good morning. We are back on the ferry here at Tangier Med. We woke up early this morning because our hotel reservation included breakfast. It was a buffet full of traditional Moroccan food. Now we started off by just grabbing what we thought looked interesting, and I think the staff could tell that we didn't know how to eat some of the foods. So one of them came over and gave us suggestions, and actually one of them made us a breakfast sandwich. Now the bread wasn't what we were used to. It was flat, kind of eggy, and kind of similar to roti bread, but that was probably the best thing we had. I also have to mention they had fresh squeezed orange juice as well as a mixture of orange and beet juice. Once we checked out, the hotel had one of their staff take us to the exit of the Medina so we could meet up with our taxi. Now Skylar had gotten the WhatsApp for the taxi driver that had gotten us to Tangier City the day prior, so we were able to arrange a time for him to bring us back to Tangier Med so we could hop back on this ferry.
Now, as we make our way back across the Strait of Gibraltar to Spain, we do want to take this time to kind of summarize our overall experience on our one day in Morocco. But before we do that, we do want to touch a little bit on the process of getting to and from the country. It was a bit of a pain getting to Morocco due to our ferry being canceled, but at least when it was canceled, I did receive an email notification letting us know about it. Today, we showed up at the ferry terminal at 10 o'clock, which was 2 hours before our ferry was scheduled to leave at noon. We gave ourselves plenty of time so we wouldn't have to be stressed out.
We are very thankful that they have a lot of signs in English as well here at the port. And They make it really easy by putting boarding on the floor. So all we have to do is follow these arrows now that we have our tickets.
But when we arrived and got our tickets, we noticed that the ticket said 3 o'clock departure time, 3 hours after it was originally scheduled to depart. Now that means we'd have to spend some extra time sitting in the ferry terminal in Tangier, which isn't really that nice, and there isn't much to do there other than petting the random cats in there, which is probably not recommended. Now the ferry did end up showing up maybe around 1 o'clock or so, and ended up departing somewhere around 2, which is an hour before the 3 o'clock time on the ticket, but still 2 hours later than what we originally thought it was going to depart at, which doesn't make much sense to us, but all we can do is roll with it. And ultimately we are happy that we are still going to make it back to Algeciras in time to pick up our rental car and still get to our Airbnb in the mountains before it gets dark tonight.
Now the countryside and the hills in this part of Morocco were very surprising. I wasn't sure what to expect, but it is really gorgeous. We would love to come back and experience more of the rural areas.
Now overall, our time in Tangier was unlike anything we've ever experienced before. It was a lot of fun, but it was also quite chaotic and quite exhausting. Now while the winding streets were pretty similar to what we'd been experiencing in the cities in Spain the few days prior to visiting Morocco, unlike Spain, the cars and the scooters don't really seem to yield to pedestrians at all. So when you're walking through the Medina, you always do have to kind of be on the lookout for cars, and when you're on the narrow streets that the cars can't even drive on, you still have to be really cautious of the scooters that go flying up and down them. But without a doubt, the most exhausting thing about our time in Tangier was constantly being approached by people. Whether it was restaurant owners trying to get us to eat at their establishment, shop owners trying to sell us stuff, general panhandlers, or even kids asking us for money or to buy them something to eat. We were just constantly getting approached. And as much as we would have loved to eat at every restaurant and shop at every store, we obviously can't do that. And we also would have liked to help out some of the locals, but if you do give the beggars anything, you're gonna be a target. So you just kind of have to ignore them and go on your way. Now, I think the thing we were most excited about in visiting Tangier was the food. And for the most part, it didn't disappoint. There were a few things that we didn't love, but overall, we really liked trying all the traditional food. I think our favorite thing was that tagine dish and also that pastry dessert that we tried from a local street vendor. Now, even though we definitely faced plenty of challenges on our trip to Tangier, we're really glad we did it, and we would love to go back and explore more of Morocco. But I think we're both really glad that we're heading back to Spain, where we're going to head into the mountains, where we'll have plenty of peace and quiet, some good time to unwind, and hopefully not nearly as much of a language barrier.
We found the roads on this drive to be quite similar to those in the US. They were wide and pretty easy to navigate, but they would become quite narrow and winding further up in the mountains.
We made it back to Spain from Morocco. We got off of the ferry a few hours ago, and since then we picked up our rental car and started this gorgeous drive up into the mountains. Now, unfortunately, we were not able to enjoy that drive near as much as we should have because we don't really have a place to stay tonight. So we spent most of this drive on the phone with Expedia. Now, we had booked a hotel through Expedia. We had it paid for and everything in a small mountain town up here. We had got a message from the hotel letting us know that they were canceling our reservation because they didn't agree with the price that Expedia had listed. Now, that would have been fine if right away Expedia had just given us a refund, but there was some sort of communication barrier between Expedia and the hotel, and unfortunately we were caught in the middle. So we've had to speak with Expedia multiple times, emailed with them, tried to communicate with the hotel multiple times, and unfortunately it's really just put a big damper on this part of our trip. Even though the hotel was putting in writing that they were canceling our reservation, Expedia wouldn't give us a refund because they weren't able to get in touch with the hotel, and when they finally did get in touch with them, they only spoke Spanish, which makes total sense because we are in Spain. Now, the fact that it took Expedia this long to get somebody who spoke Spanish to connect with the hotel to get this resolved is absolutely ridiculous. After 24 hours of fighting with them, they finally have agreed to refund our money, and we're just hoping that we're able to find somewhere to stay tonight.
Now, there was much more to this Expedia story, but we couldn't waste any more time and had to shift our focus to finding a new place to stay. As we knew each of these mountain villages were small, with limited options for hotels.
Yeah, if we can stay at this hotel, we should. This town is sweet.
So quick update, we parked and called around to a few hotels. There were a couple of them that were completely full, but one of them said they had availability. It was about a 25-minute drive, so we're on our way there right now.
And now it's a race against daylight because I do not want to be driving on this road in the dark and the sun just set.
So this road at sunset on the side of this mountain is absolutely gorgeous, but it is narrow and it is a two-way road, so we have to be very careful. So we made it to this other village. It's starting to get dark. We went from thinking we were staying in a village up on the side of a mountain to hopefully staying here in a valley. We're a little nervous to get to this hotel to see what it's like because we weren't able to do any research. We were just finding some place that was relatively close that had availability. So wish us luck. I think you go over the train tracks and take a right. So we made it to the hotel and they had plenty of availability, and I think we were supposed to be here tonight because it has such a different feel, exactly what we were looking for. We are on the second floor. Look at this hallway. I'll meet you up there. Look at this place. It's got wood floors. We have a really old little chandelier. Skylar really likes this chair. We're not going to show you much because we are really hungry, but here's our bathroom. It actually has a bidet. We were not expecting that here. And there's a tub and shower back there. Now I know it's dark so you can't see too much of the property, but it does have a restaurant and a bar, so we're gonna go eat. After driving us through the mountains, Skylar was ready for another Spanish beer. And I was ready to try some more croquetas. While we both thought the croquetas were good, we agreed our main dishes were even better. I went with the chicken burger, which was a fried chicken patty with an egg and cheese. And Skylar couldn't pass up the oxtail dish. The oxtail was our favorite as it was fall off the bone tender and full of flavor. We loved the atmosphere as it felt like a mountain lodge, and the service was great too.
So we are on our way to an excursion this morning, and we got about 15 minutes to spare. And since we're leaving too early to get breakfast at the hotel, we decided to stop at a little grocery store to see what we could find. And here it is. So the stop by the store was a success. For about $5, we got some pastries, a drink, and I think we're about 25 minutes from our excursion. So hopefully we'll make it there in time. We got to drive back down this super windy road though.
So I'm really glad that the guy at the car rental place talked us into renting a smaller car than the one we had reserved. We had like a mid-size SUV reserved because we thought the roads in the mountains could potentially be in rough shape, and we kind of wanted a big SUV to be able to handle that. But we found that the roads are actually in great shape, but they're very narrow, so I'm glad we got a much smaller car. It's easier to meet the other vehicles on the road and get by them, and also a lot easier to park.
What the inside looks like. Very crumbly. So those wrapped pastries we tried were so interesting. Somehow they were dry and not dry at the same time. They were maybe more similar to like a cookie or a donut, and honestly they kind of grew on us. We liked them. So this morning we are doing a via ferrata. We've never done one before. We think it's a mixture of like hiking and climbing, but you're connected on a cable the entire time. The one we're doing is supposed to be the most difficult in this area, so we're really excited. After getting parked, we met our tour guide Audrey, who is very friendly and knowledgeable about the area. He was more than willing to share information about the surrounding mountains and Spanish culture. We found most people we encountered on this trip to be similar, friendly and willing to answer our questions, both in the cities and in the rural areas.
We're hiking up to our starting point on this Via Ferrata, and we got a view right here where you can see Gibraltar in the distance. That's the big rock sticking out right around there. And past that, you can see some peaks just coming out of that haze, and that is Morocco.
We did find it to be less common for people to speak English in the more rural areas, but we were still able to communicate with our small Spanish vocabulary and Google Translate.
And normally, the Via Ferratas are going up.
Okay.
This one is a little bit strange. We're going down, okay?
Ooh.
You can see that we are entering in this level, and the exit is lower.
So we just got clipped in, and this is the view at the start of this thing. Audrey was explaining that most Via Ferratas go up, but this one actually goes down mostly.
Yes.
Having fun yet, Jamie?
Oh yeah.
From there, big step.
Big step.
Oh yeah, big step.
You got it. Oh. Nice.
One difference between Spain and the US that affected us more than we expected was the time difference. This area of Spain is 6 hours ahead of the east coast of the US. We didn't know that jet lag symptoms involved more than just being tired or difficulty sleeping. And during the first couple of days on this trip, we both experienced bouts of dizziness and nausea. But thankfully, by this time in our trip, we were quite adjusted to the time change and could fully enjoy the Via Ferrata.
Here we can see where we're going. That is a bridge that we're going to cross, and then that is a zip line.
Another difference we experienced on this trip was the change of pace. The areas of Spain we visited generally seemed to be more laid back and moved at a slower pace than the States. One big example of this was at restaurants. It generally took longer to be seated, get our orders taken, and to receive our check. Once we experienced this a couple times, we got used to it and it didn't bother us. Now we will be sharing more about our different dining experiences a little later, but for now we'll get back to the Via Ferrata.
All right, we can't stay up here all day.
Such a great view.
I know, we should probably get going.
All right.
Heading down further next. It's like climbing a ladder.
Yep. Now, if you are old like me, I would definitely recommend stretching before this activity because some of these steps are pretty far apart. Oh, that one was too far.
All right, Skylar's finally decided to come down. It's hard to not just hang out and enjoy the view. This is the view before we go down and go across that bridge.
Audrey's leaving you in the dust, Jamie.
I know.
Don't seem to be wobbling quite as much on that one. Maybe.
This one, wobbling more.
Wobbling more?
Because it's longer.
Oh, okay.
Skylar's getting to the middle of this bridge. It's pretty wobbly.
It would look like I'm really scared, right? Yeah, I'm not. Actually, it's pretty awesome. What do you think so far, Jamie?
It's amazing.
Ready for the zip line?
Yeah.
We've kind of just been hanging out here for a bit, waiting for Audrey to get the zip line ready, and he just let us know that it was not a bad place to be hanging out.
No, not at all.
Just a nice little view of Gibraltar and Morocco. Trying to get Jamie set up for the zip line. I think we're getting close.
I made it across the zip line, and Audrey is preparing it for Skylar next. Here he goes! Woo!
What did you think of the zip line?
It was fun.
You went a lot slower than me.
Yeah, I did.
Sadly, I think we're almost done, but that's all right. We got a beautiful drive ahead of us still, and hopefully a really good lunch.
So we just finished our Via Ferrata experience with South Coast Adventures, and our guide Audrey was awesome. So if you're at all interested in doing a Via Ferrata, rock climbing, or even canyoneering, we'll make sure to leave their contact information in the video description. We are stopped off at a lookout here while Skylar finds us a place to eat. While he does that, I wanted to talk a little bit about our experience in these small mountain towns, because they were not what we expected at all. You know, where we're from in the Midwest, the towns are a lot more spread out and very relaxed. But these mountain towns still have city centers where the roads are super narrow. It's really crazy to drive through. It's really hard to find parking. Thankfully, our guide showed us the way out of the city. It would have been really hard for us to get out on our own. Even though the driving experience was really crazy, we still really enjoyed these mountain towns. They were very charming, and we wish we had more time to spend in them. For example, the one that we just came from even has a castle you can go up and see. Most of these mountain villages are white villages, but our guide let us know that nearby there is one that is completely blue. It has something to do with the Smurfs, but unfortunately we're not going to have time to visit it during this trip. Once we find a place to eat, we are going to drive through the mountains, and from what our guide said, it's going to be a beautiful drive. During that time, we'll probably share a little bit more of our experiences visiting all these different cities in Spain.
Now, as we drive to our lunch spot, we do have another difference worth mentioning. Both in the small villages and larger cities, we found it to be common for buildings to be several hundred years old, and it seemed to us that the communities do a lot to preserve them, which is much different than the American mentality of constantly tearing down old buildings to build new.
So pretty much our only criteria for our lunch spot today was that it had a great view, and we soon realized that there were going to be plenty of restaurants that met that criteria on this beautiful mountain drive. Unfortunately though, a lot of those restaurants only have a few parking spots out front, and they were all taken. Thankfully though, we did come across La Solana. It had a lot of parking spots, and as you can see, it has an amazing view.
So I've already tried both of these soups. The first one, the broth tastes a lot like chicken noodle, but instead of noodles, it has bread and egg in it. And I also ordered the dish of the day. I honestly didn't know it was going to be a soup. I knew it was going to have beans and vegetables and meat in it. It kind of reminds me of a vegetable beef soup, but with beans.
Now, when we were in Malaga and Seville, it seemed to be about a 50-50 chance if there would be pork legs hanging from the ceiling of a restaurant. In rural Spain, though, it does seem to be less common, but here at La Solana, there are 3 of them. Now, like in the United States, both in the urban and rural areas in Spain, they do often bring you a dish of bread before your meal. But unlike in the United States, they normally do charge you for it in our experience. Now, one time we were brought 2 different types of bread, and we only ate one of them. And we noticed that we were only charged 50% of what that bread costs on the menu. So I'm guessing if you don't eat any of the bread, most of the places won't charge you for it, even though they brought it to your table. Sometimes they will also bring you olives as well. Now, unlike in the United States, the bread normally doesn't come with butter. Sometimes they will bring olive oil to your table, and if it's not already at your table, you can ask for it. And I should mention that even though they do charge you for the bread, it's normally only like 50 cents or $1, and most of it's been really good quality, so I've always ended up eating it. So I ordered the octopus leg. Honestly, I was kind of expecting it to be battered and fried. This obviously is not, but it looks really good. Jamie, are you going to be eating any of the octopus leg?
I don't know. So I do think the flavor is good, but for me, I have a hard time with that texture. I don't like feeling like the suctions on the tentacles. I think Skylar's going to be eating a lot of octopus.
So the more narrow section of this octopus leg is quite tender, but the wider section is quite a bit chewier. It all tastes great, though I agree with Jamie that the texture is a little bit strange, but I don't mind.
You could make a day of just driving through these mountains because there are so many villages you can drive through and stop at. There's also all these miradors, which are lookout points. We are finding that most of these miradors do have a nice map to show you where you are. This one's missing a few sections, but all the others we've seen have been in really good shape. And you can see mirador, 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 all of the miradors along the drive. Unfortunately, we don't have all day to stop at all the lookout points, so we have to be selective.
Because there were so many lookouts along this winding road, it actually reminded us a bit of the Blue Ridge Parkway in Virginia and North Carolina in the US.
We're at our first gas station here in Spain. Skylar is trying to figure out how it works. It looks a little bit different than the States.
I don't know. I might just have to go inside and prepay. Maybe, yeah, but you might not be able to pay at the pump here. I don't know. Now, while we make our way to our next mountain village, we did want to talk a little bit about getting around here in the more rural areas of Spain. And unlike in the US, where you probably can't find public transportation to the smaller towns, almost all of the small towns here in Spain, from what we can tell, are accessible by either bus or train. However, unlike in the big cities, those stops are fewer and further between. So while we would have been able to get to all of the towns we visited over the last couple of days, it would have taken us much longer. And for that reason, we did decide to book a rental car. We also want to mention that if you do want to book a rental car as a U.S. citizen here in Spain, you do have to have an international driver's license, but that's actually really easy to get. You just have to go into a AAA office, pay a small fee, and you'll have your driver's license within a matter of minutes. Thankfully, we did find the pricing of the rental car here to be pretty straightforward. There is liability insurance that's required here in Spain to drive, but that's actually baked into the price of the rental car, which is much better than some other countries I've driven in, where we rent the car for one price and then you show up at the office and find out that you actually have to spend a lot more money in insurance. Now, most of the rental cars here in Spain are manuals, but we did pay a little bit extra to get an automatic. While I can drive a manual, I knew we were going to be driving up in the mountains. It was going to be very windy roads, and I was going to want to be able to enjoy the scenery and not have to worry about shifting all the time. Now, the speed limits here, of course, are in kilometers per hour, but that's fine because so is the speedometer in our rental car. And I've actually been doing a really good job of not speeding because our car actually beeps at us every time we go over the speed limit. And even though we've been driving the speed limit, most of the other cars here in Spain, I'd say, haven't been because we've been getting passed constantly. Now, when it came time to get fuel, it was a little bit confusing because, of course, the prices are in euros and also in liters. So you do have to do a little bit of math to actually figure out what you're paying, and it definitely is more than what you're going to be paying in the States. I actually spent a few minutes trying to figure out how to pay at the pump before I realized that you couldn't, at least at that gas station. You just have to fill up your vehicle and then go inside and pay for it, kind of like you used to do in the States.
Sadly, we have made it to our last destination on this trip, but we are at a really cool Airbnb. It's got this lower area where you can watch TV, and it has a little kitchenette, and then you go up these stairs, and that is where the bedroom is, which is very nice and cozy. You've got the bathroom up here. I love the tile next to the sink. The shower is a good size, but I think what I'm most excited about is this door. You can see up the street. There's a cool church in the distance, and you can see down the street. This is a really neat mountain village to be staying in. We wish we would have gotten out and about a little bit earlier to see sunset over the city. Once again, these mountain villages continue to amaze us with how beautiful they are. Now, from our time in these mountain villages, we are noticing some similarities. Their buildings are old and white. Their roads are paved with brick, really narrow and very windy. They all have a cool church, and most of them even have a castle. It is so quiet. Well, since there aren't any coffee shops or bakeries open, we're just eating our pastries that we bought yesterday morning. They're actually really good. They're filled with chocolate, and we weren't expecting that.
After a very early and very beautiful drive through the mountains, we finally found some coffee and arrived to our final adventure of this 10-day trip.
Tomorrow we are leaving Spain after spending the last 10 days exploring 2 major cities, a beach town, and a few mountain villages.
And today we're going to be sharing what we loved and didn't love about our time here in Spain from the beautiful Caminito del Rey. And at the end of this video, we'll let you know if we'd ever consider a return trip to this country.
Now we're going to start off by discussing the drinks and dining here in Spain because honestly that's probably what we are most excited for. Now one thing that I absolutely loved is that you can find coffee shops all over the place here, and even if you can't find a coffee shop, most of the restaurants do have espresso machines and are capable of making really good lattes, cafe con leches, and cappuccinos. And while they may be a little bit smaller than the ones you typically find in the States, they only cost like $1.50 or $2, so you can buy like 3 or 4 of them for the price of one in the States.
Now, I really like that most of the restaurants offered tapas, which are small plates. This allowed us to try a lot of different foods, so we really enjoyed trying all of the different dishes. Also, I should mention a lot of the restaurants and cafes had fresh squeezed orange juice, and it was affordable and really delicious.
Another thing that I really loved was the availability of fresh seafood, which we were able to try a lot of, because in many places we found it to be only like half the price of what it normally is in Florida, and then when you include the fact that you don't have to tip, it's even less expensive. So we were able to eat a lot of seafood that we wouldn't normally eat, and most of it was extremely fresh and delicious. Now, being a big fan of olives, the abundance of olives in the grocery stores and in the restaurants here in Spain is another thing that I loved, but I didn't necessarily love the fact that the bread came served with olive oil. I do much prefer butter on my bread, but Jamie actually prefers the olive oil. Now, getting back to the drinks, I was a little bit nervous that I wouldn't be able to find good beers in Spain since it's known for being such a big wine country. But the local beers in Spain actually are really good, and I could often find them on draft for like the equivalent of $1.50 or $2. I also loved the fact that it seemed to be pretty socially acceptable to enjoy a beer or a coffee almost any time of the day or night.
Something else I really enjoyed was the availability of outdoor seating at a lot of the establishments. But a negative does come with that. We experienced a lot of people coming up to us and asking for money, whether it be a street performer or a homeless person. They were a little more aggressive than what we are used to, so it's just something to be aware of if you're sitting outside, especially in the bigger cities. There are a few more negatives that we do want to talk about with the dining experience. Here, they do not give you free water, so you do have to purchase water at restaurants. And because of that, we saw that a lot of people were drinking beer or wine because honestly, in some cases, it was cheaper than water or just a little bit more expensive. Now, while most establishments do have a restroom you can use if you are a customer there, we had a hard time finding public restrooms. And when we could find public restrooms, they were not in really good shape.
Now, we've always heard that the service at restaurants is much slower in Spain and in Europe in general, so we were expecting it to be quite a bit slower on this trip, and it was. Oftentimes it would take quite a while for the server to take our order or to get our check after we were done eating. But what surprised us is that after we actually placed our food orders, oftentimes it came out really fast. I'd say it generally came out faster than it does in the States, especially when ordering tapas. Another thing that really surprised me is how much I actually enjoyed the sangria here. I am typically not a big fan of red wine, but the Spanish sangria is absolutely delicious. I think I tried it at 4 or 5 different places, and I enjoyed every one of them. Yet another thing that surprised me is how much I liked the chocolate. Generally, Jamie loves chocolate, and I can take it or leave it, but all of the chocolate I tried here in Spain, I actually enjoyed.
Now, before we move on to our next topic, we wanted to take some time to show you a few shots from our absolutely stunning filming location for the day, Caminito del Rey. And while we share the beauty of this famous Andalucia attraction, Skylar's going to tell you a bit about it.
Caminito del Rey is Spanish for the King's Little Path. It's located in a national park here in Spain. It was once actually known to be one of the most dangerous hikes in the entire world, and you'll probably be able to find some YouTube videos that claim that it still is. But as you can see, they have installed safety wires and fences, and it's now a very safe hike. Even children can do it, but if you have a fear of heights, it's still probably going to be a little bit scary. Now, even though it is quite safe, you do still have to wear helmets because you are often walking right along the edge of a mountain, and there is always a possibility of rocks falling.
There's a train that actually goes through these mountains. How cool is that? We'll have to find out which train that is, so maybe someday we can ride it.
Yeah.
This has been the coolest part of the trail by far. So far, at least. The patterns in the rock on this side of the mountain are really cool to see. Very pretty. The water is a really pretty green color. Whoa. Oh my gosh. This bridge moves a lot. Look, Skylar's back there. He said he likes how it feels. It has a lot of bounce to it, I'd say. Next, we want to talk about transportation. We absolutely loved how easy it was to get to different cities via bus or train. And then once you were at a city, they had different bus lines. You could pay for them. Some of them were even free, but they were very inexpensive. But we never ended up using those buses because we found the city centers to be so walkable.
Now in the major cities in Spain, they do have Uber and a couple other European ride-hailing apps. And they also have a similar app that you can actually use to order taxi cabs, and sometimes the taxis are cheaper than Uber or the other ride-hailing apps. Now, of course, you can also choose to rent a car, which we did on our last few days here in Spain when we were going up into the mountains. And we thought the car rental process here in Spain was actually quite easy and inexpensive compared to some of the other countries we've rented cars in. Now, once you've actually rented your car, driving here in Spain can be fun, but also quite stressful. I really enjoyed driving through the mountains. The roads were well maintained, and some of them were pretty wide and had a lot of viewing points to stop off at. But driving in the city centers and in the small mountain villages was definitely not nearly as enjoyable, mainly because the streets were just so narrow and winding. You couldn't always see if there was another car coming from the other direction, and then when you would meet that car, oftentimes you'd have to back up to get to a wider part of the road or pull way over to the edge of the road just so you could fit by each other. It was pretty stressful, and if you do rent a car and plan on driving in the cities or in the small villages, I would definitely recommend getting a compact one.
Now, I know Skylar mentioned how stressful the driving was for him, but it was also stressful for me as a passenger. And honestly, if it weren't for his willingness to drive on these crazy roads, we wouldn't have made it to some of our favorite spots on this trip. Now, there were a few times we were concerned about damaging our rental car when driving through those really narrow streets, but overall during this trip, we never found ourselves in a situation where we were concerned about our safety. Even when we were walking in the city at night, whether the street was really busy or completely empty, we always felt safe.
Not only did we never feel like we really had to worry about any sort of crime, but we also felt really safe just walking around on the streets, because in Spain it seems like drivers are much more considerate of pedestrians. If we were anywhere in the vicinity of a crosswalk, the drivers would almost always stop and wait to see if we are going to walk through, whereas in the US it seems like maybe a 50-50 shot at best that they'll even stop for you when you're in the crosswalk. And staying on the topic of driving, we were expecting to see a lot of roundabouts here in Spain because Europe is kind of known for those. But one thing I really didn't enjoy that I encountered was a double roundabout. There were actually two roundabouts connected to each other, and that was one of the weirdest and more challenging driving situations that we encountered here in Spain. Yet another thing that we were expecting that we didn't enjoy about driving here in Spain was the price of the fuel. It definitely was quite a bit more expensive than the cost of fuel in the States.
Another thing we loved kind of ties in with food, drinks, and transportation, and that is the healthy lifestyle. There doesn't seem to be near as much processed food, and fresh fruits, veggies, and seafood seems to be more readily available. Also, the culture doesn't seem to promote overconsumption. From our experience, if you're at a restaurant and the server thinks you might be ordering too much food, they might actually tell you that, which is something that doesn't typically happen in the States. Also, because the cities are so walkable, we think people just get more exercise in their day-to-day lives.
And while they do seem to be more healthy here in Spain in general, there definitely are a few aspects of Spanish culture that aren't as healthy. They definitely do drink more coffee, they do seem to drink more beer and definitely more wine, and there are many more people smoking on the streets, and you even see cigarette machines in many bars and restaurants.
We also love the abundance of small businesses. We didn't see a bunch of fast food chains or big grocery stores in the city centers. Instead, there were small grocery stores every few blocks and a ton of mom and pop shops. It was also nice that a lot of the tourist attractions, like accessing the castles, the churches, and even this hike, were very reasonably priced. They were much less expensive compared to similar experiences in the States.
Yet another thing we really enjoyed about Spain is just how clean the cities are in general. We found there to be lots of trash bins and even recycling bins around the city, and you can just really tell how much pride the people take in keeping their cities clean. But unfortunately, the sanitization in Spain left a little bit to be desired. One example of that was at the market in Malaga. There was a big bowl of olives, and people were actually reaching in with their bare hands, and then they were proceeding to sell olives out of that same bowl. Another example is the restrooms. Now, we did find that most of the restrooms in Spain do have sinks outside of them where you can wash your hands, but some of those sink areas didn't have any soap at all or any sort of hand sanitizer.
Another thing we really appreciated about Spain being tourists that cannot speak the language well, we found that a lot of people did know a little bit of English, and in most cases, if they didn't know a little bit of English, they were more than willing to try to communicate with us with our poor Spanish. There were only a couple instances in the smaller cities where people seemed a little annoyed that we couldn't speak Spanish better. Now, the next thing I love about Spain is that you're never more than a few hours from the beach or the mountains. And during our trip in southern Spain, we were never more than an hour away from both. Because we were here in the wintertime, we spent more time in the mountains. If we came back in the summer, we would spend much more time on the beach.
Another area where we found Spain to be quite a bit different from in the States is lodging. Now, one thing we loved about the lodging is we were definitely able to get quite a bit more for our money than we would have in the States. We stayed at some really nice hotels and Airbnbs in really great locations and still spent less than an average of $100 per night. Now, one thing we didn't love as much about the lodging was the check-in process. In the States, there's almost always someone at a hotel desk 24 hours, and for Airbnbs, you can usually check in electronically with a key code or access a physical key through a lockbox. But here in Spain, a few of our spots, we actually had to meet up with a person to retrieve a key, and that means getting in touch with them ahead of time to plan the meetup, and it just really makes you have less flexibility when you're planning your travels.
We also didn't love that the hours on Google for restaurants and stores seemed to be much more unreliable when compared to the States. For example, this morning I went out to get a coffee at 7 a.m. at a place that was supposed to be open and found that none of the businesses in the village that we were staying at were open. Now, when we did find a restaurant that was open, it wasn't uncommon to have a hard time finding parking. A lot of these businesses only had a few spots, and if those were taken, it could be really hard to find close by parking. Now, the last thing we really don't love about Spain is that we have to leave tomorrow. We were only able to experience a small area in southern Spain, and there are so many places we would love to see in Spain, so we absolutely would consider planning another trip back to this beautiful country.
We hope you've enjoyed your time exploring the south of Spain with us on this 10-day Andalusian adventure. If you'd like to join us on our future adventures in Florida, the Caribbean, and all around the world, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. And if there's any other regions of Spain or European countries you'd like to see us explore on this channel, be sure to let us know in the comments. And as always, thanks for watching.